Okay, we're here with Jerry Hansen, and he's running again for re-election for county commissioner. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Jerry.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you to Free 07 for the invitation here to get to visit with folks. I am currently a Lincoln County Commissioner. I love the United States, I love Wyoming, I love Lincoln County, and I love this area that we get to call home. Lincoln County is home for us, and thoroughly enjoy having our family get to be around here. Part of the interest that I have in being involved in politics is to encourage commerce, encourage business, so that maybe eventually your kids, our kids, and the kids. One of the things that we export the most of is a lot of very talented young people who graduate from high school and then have to go elsewhere to find a good job. We are right in the middle of doing something about that, and we can talk a little further about that on particularly the south end of the county, so that and we're looking at a regional transportation plan that would likely also be able to help with people if they want to go and work at some of the industry that's in the south part of the county, that they'd have the ability to do that. So a couple of things that are guiding principles for me is principle-based leadership is very important to me, that you look to find the very best information possible to make the very best decisions possible, and that integrity is a hallmark. That is the basis of successful governance, I believe, is if there's integrity. On the other hand, if there's no integrity in government, then you look at the problems that occur, and it's easy to spot them. And so that's why I lean very heavily on integrity. God, family, and country are very important to me. That is something that I will stand by. Now, we could talk a lot about philosophy. Let's talk about some of the important things that are going on in Lincoln County. Let's start with Star Valley, at the north end of the county, and the growth. Very few people I talk to are thrilled about the growth. But I don't know that I have a great answer for that, because I cannot afford to go buy all the property and stop the growth. There are communities that have done similar, and they won't allow any new building, new growth. And I don't think that that's an option for us. What if we were to say, let's stop the growth? How about the folks that are contractors or building supplies providers, a lumber store? You think of all the ancillary business that are connected. If you have a moratorium and you stop all the growth, boy, that affects a lot of families, a lot of the economy. So we have to be really careful about that. One of the things I am particularly concerned about is septic tank, wastewater, and septic tanks as it pertains to developments. Now, it's important because the Wyoming DEQ requires on many of these subdivisions a Chapter 23 study for water and wastewater. And there is science connected to that. And so I'm not alarmed, I'm just concerned, and so we are doing some studies to determine if there are things that we can do better. Maybe an option is a batch plant for septage, to be able to treat that, some type of a smaller wastewater treatment facility.
Okay.
Now, that's an introduction, I guess. We can talk about a whole bunch of other things if you have other questions.
So, yeah, one of the questions was, what are your ideas about the impact for the Star Valley infrastructure and developments in water and sewer, and how are we going to meet or mitigate the stress on the Star Valley utilities? So with Alpine booming, I think that is a very big worry on, what are we going to do with all the sewage and where's it going to be stored, put, whatever, because they're looking at what, 150 tiny homes or something right there by the elk refuge.
There's a development that is proposed right now, and we will likely be seeing that. See, there's a process. They'll go through and deal with planning and zoning on a development like that. And without saying specifically what the development is, they'll go through a process with the Planning and Development Department of Lincoln County. Then it would likely get Planning and Zoning Commission. Staff will be able to look closely at that. And then eventually it would end up with the county commissioners. And we would make a decision regarding that proposal. Now, let's talk about Alpine for a minute. They have their own source of water, and they also have their own wastewater treatment plant. That's a pretty good scenario for their community. And Thane has their own water supply, and they have wastewater lagoon or whatever system is to be able to handle that. Afton does have lagoons and has their own source of water. So that's one of the reasons we kind of encourage folks to build a little closer to the municipalities that have that infrastructure in place, so that that's probably where you should have a little higher density so that people can tie into that infrastructure.
Do we worry about that being overloaded at some point we'll just say in Afton? Do we worry about our not our septic system, but our town sewer being overloaded at some point with too many new houses coming in, or?
I would leave that question, and one of the things you have to be aware of when you are an elected official is, what's your jurisdiction? Let's say the town of Afton, they have a proposal to build a couple hundred residential units, is what I understand that it may be happening on the north part of town. But town of Afton would likely, if they're going to provide a will serve letter for water, or will serve letter for wastewater, those types of things, so that you don't overstress the infrastructure and what's available in the community. But that's not dictated by the county. That is Afton's jurisdiction, or whatever municipality has those types of that type of infrastructure.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Nuclear energy. So this question was, we love nuclear energy, but Bill Gates. Also, what about the impact of the influx of workers on county infrastructure?
The influx of workers, let's talk about industry. This county is diverse, and you and I are more familiar maybe with this end of the county. I'm much more familiar with the other end of the county and throughout the county because of serving several years as a county commissioner. And one of the reasons I am running again is I've got unfinished business. There are things that I want to see happen that we have in the process right now. But your top 10 taxpayers come from the south end of the county. And probably the top right now is the Exxon Mobile Plant, where I think they produce 20% of the world's helium supply, and it's significant. They've got trucks and trailers that take that and get it shipped all over the world, and they're a special lined another tank that the helium is actually in. Then they'll go put them on ships and get them to where they need to go. But it's significant. That plant, I think they probably, since it came into existence and operations, probably $2 billion that they've spent to be able to do what they're doing. And yes, they've made money, or they probably wouldn't be in business.
That's the whole point, right?
$100 million a year in employee wages and taxes. Those are significant numbers when it comes down to business.
Mm-hmm.
And those are jobs that people from throughout the county, if they choose to go after jobs like that, they're available. One of the things that we like to encourage is point of delivery on supplies. We like to see if new industries coming in, we hope that they will have the point of delivery in Lincoln County so that we get the taxes. Now somebody says, well, why are you so worried about taxes? We're worried about taxes because that's how the services are provided to folks in the county is through taxes, and there are many of them that come through. The county really collects many of those taxes, like property tax, and then they send it into the state, and then they send back a portion that we'll be able to utilize, which is about, I don't know, 12, 13%, I think,
Mm-hmm.
of the property tax that we get to have back to put in the general fund. That's one of the reasons we're kind of concerned about taxes.
Okay.
And we can talk further about that. So let's talk about, and I guess I was getting to the influx of workers. Kemmer is working on more housing. Diamondville's working on more housing. Alpine's working on more housing, as is Thane, and they have some proposed developments in the works. Afton, a couple hundred homes that we talked about. So as we talked about the regional transportation plan, if you kind of spread out the population, they are able to have a nice place to live. And if they choose to go one direction or another, either towards the south end of Lincoln County or up to Teton County, which
Mm-hmm.
occurs a lot
Mm-hmm.
from Star Valley, we don't see that as a bad thing. We know that Simplot Smoky Canyon Mine has tremendous impact, positive impact on the Star Valley community.
Yeah.
Kemmer Operations Coal Mine, that's a big deal in the south end of the county, in the Kemmer Diamondville
Mm-hmm.
area, Cokeville. So you've got the coal mine, you have the Naughton Power Plant, you have Exxon Mobile. There's also a number of other projects that are in the works. We just went through the permitting process and the industrial siting through the Wyoming DEQ for the Project West, which is a soda ash or trona mine just in Sweetwater County, but it impacts Lincoln County, and we went to work as a county, and we have, when I say we or I, we have really a wonderful, talented group of people that work for Lincoln County. And so when I say that, I mean we, as a county,
Mm-hmm.
went after and were able to get some money through this impact mitigation industrial siting council to be able to help mitigate that. So whether it's law enforcement, or for road and bridge, or if it's for the hospital, the senior citizen center, those types of funds are made available because of the hard work and the cooperation between some of the municipalities in that part of the county and the county to be able to pursue that. So like I say, I don't think that we welcome the fact that people would be able to have a job in Lincoln County and be able to support themselves and a family.
Mm-hmm.
And there are concerns, and when I was elected, there were real concerns about where we would end up if we didn't have a coal-fired power plant, because it was imminent.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been delayed somewhat, and may still be a ways off before they convert to natural gas. Maybe let me back up a little bit. Federal government, it is a war on the West and the war on Wyoming, and it comes down to a war on Lincoln County.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as simple as that, and it's, quite frankly, it's ridiculous. But you look at how the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, is being managed, and how drilling, there was a while there that you couldn't do any drilling on public lands. It's ridiculous. So,
Yep.
and I don't want to get too far-reaching here, but energy independence that the United States should have is not really happening the last several years.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways in which you make a great nation, a great America, is through Wyoming's energy and through Lincoln County's energy. Wyoming exports and Lincoln County exports a lot of energy. And we could be, not just based on Wyoming, but we could be energy independent. And I am looking forward to the day when we do that again. But it literally is or at least figuratively, a war on the West and on our way of living. And it's not just on energy and federal lands, but on other areas as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
More questions?
Okay, let's see what else we got.
'Cause I could, I'm sorry, but I could ramble.
No, I absolutely, I get it. I get it. And we do have, here in Wyoming, we have a lot of. We could be self-sustaining.
Yes, we could. We could.
Because we send everything out, and we get back very minimal of what we send out, which is frustrating.
And that's good that we are, that we export energy for other parts of the country and the world.
Yep.
But certainly and one of the concerns too is Wyoming, though, is a recent study is showing that our energy costs for Wyoming residents is higher than many other places. That's unfortunate, and that may be because what are we, the 8th largest state in the union area-wise?
Yeah.
And therefore you drive a lot. I mean, if you looked at my gas bill,
we do.
It's and I'm not any different than anybody else.
Nope.
If you're commuting to Jackson or you're commuting wherever, you spend a lot of money on fuel.
Yep.
Anyway, so concerns about the BLM, the Rock Springs RMP. You've probably seen that in the news, but it is government overreach at the worst, and they are working very hard to put in rules in place that create hardship for people who need to utilize the public lands. And I'm very much for multiple use on public lands, whether it's the BLM or it's the U.S. Forest Service, et cetera. So I don't want to go down too many
I get it.
rabbit
I
holes,
get it.
but
I get
want to
it.
give you a general feel for some of that.
Yep. Okay, so whereas we're seeing a lot of growth in Star Valley, what would you like to do to see an increase or to support the increase in demand for like search and rescue, the fire department, stuff like that?
Okay, let's talk about districts.
Okay.
Cemetery district, or a water and sewer district, or an improvement district, or those are separate taxing entities from the county, and they receive distributions from the taxes that are collected, and then they're passed on. Search and rescue is not a district. It operates really under the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, but is partially funded by Lincoln County. That's for both the Star Valley Search and Rescue and for the Lincoln County Search and Rescue, based out of Kemmer-Diamondville area. Fire departments, Afton Rural, Mid-Valley, and Alpine. They're fire districts, and so they receive their own funding from the taxpayers, from you and me, through this mechanism of districts. If you live in a cemetery district, for instance, then they would have the ability to receive tax dollars and then be able to maintain that cemetery through a separate means. Now, we're not, so you mentioned search and rescue and fire department, but there are some entities that are not districts, and they really look to the county for a portion of their funding, whether it's the Senior Citizen Center in LaBarge, or in Cokeville, or in Thane, or in Afton. Those the vital services that are given to seniors with their Meals on Wheels, or with their being able to go in the center and have good nutrition for the seniors. Also, the importance of socialization for those seniors. It occurs partially because of county funding. I've got about a 60-page document, most recently passed budget for this fiscal year. We could talk specifics, but I think just generally know that those are things that we put our tax dollars into, and we as county commissioners have that responsibility, along with the county clerk, who has responsibility for the budget as well. She's the chief budget officer.
Okay.
So, do we support them? You're darn right. Do we support them? In some instances, if they're a district, we have to be cautious because you don't want double taxation. Let's say there is a taxing district and they're receiving tax dollars, and the county chooses to pump additional dollars in there, then we have to be cautious, really cautious about that, so that we're not taxing people
twice
beyond what we should.
Okay.
Let's go back to nuclear.
Okay. Yep. Absolutely.
So the question is, what do I think about nuclear? And a lot of this is Jerry Hansen's perspective.
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to talk
Yep. Nope. Absolutely.
from the current county commissioner, even though I'm a commissioner and have been for 3.5 years, have some experience under my belt. I am speaking for myself, and but if anybody has issue with that, have them call me. My number at the office is 307-877-2001.
Okay.
So 877-2001. Call me if I'm not in the office, which I do an awful lot of work on email and on phone calls and in person and at meetings. We could have meetings every day. There's no such thing as a part-time county commissioner. It's just you're on call, you're on duty, so to speak. Right now we're looking about at the moisture levels in fuels as it pertains to a fire ban. We are not there yet, but we have to keep a good look on it and make sure that if we have to put a fire ban in place, we're ready to do that.
Yep.
Nuclear. Many of us are concerned about nuclear because of Chernobyl, or 3 Mile Island, or Japan, where they had problems there. Advanced nuclear and TerraPower, which is natrium, advanced ultra-safe nuclear, is not it's still fusion. It's still nuclear fusion, and they use enriched uranium as the fuel source. But the sodium, the molten sodium, is a significant advancement in the way you cool the fuel, so that you don't have a meltdown. And that sodium, would make it really, really difficult, and I can't say impossible, but really, really difficult to melt down because of the way in which it cools that fuel in that reactor. Are some people concerned about the fact that Bill Gates is involved? Of course, and at the same time, Bill Gates and TerraPower are putting an estimated $2 billion. I have a hard time wrapping my head around $1 million or $100 million.
That number, yeah.
But $2 billion, and then you and me are putting in the other $2 billion as taxpayers because the federal government is doing that. There is an extensive process for them to be able to permit a nuclear reactor like TerraPower, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, We just met with them last week, and they gave us additional information on their safety review and their environmental review to ensure that as they permit TerraPower to be able to build this facility, that they do it the way they should, so you don't have environmental concerns or safety concerns down the road. Then, when that's completed, then to operate it, and they build it, and so they get a construction permit, then they build it, they'll need to do a permit process to be able to get an operation permit to operate that nuclear facility. So the federal government, and I'm not a big fan, nevertheless, as I watch what the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC, is doing, they'll end up putting about 27,000 hours into the process for safety and environmental review, and about, I think it's about $4 million in contractor, subcontractors that will be doing some of the review as well. Once again, speaking from my perspective, I am thrilled to see nuclear coming to Wyoming, coming to Lincoln County, coming to the Kemmer-Diamondville area. I think it's a great technology, and I'd rather have it here sooner rather than later. But and that's one of several reasons I have unfinished business. Is that I would like to see that, and 2030 is a long ways away, but it'll come in a hurry if you're trying to build a nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
And so let's see, we met with TerraPower just a couple of weeks ago, met with them, and they are looking at putting it in conjunction with the test and fill facility where they do the sodium. Then you have the nuclear reactor that will come later as it's permitted and be constructed. A training facility to be able to train people from wherever, from Lincoln County, from both ends of the Lincoln County, from the central part of the county, or any of the outlying areas. They have the potential to come and be trained to work at a nuclear reactor. We think that training facility is a key part of employment in Lincoln County and in southwest Wyoming. It's significant.
Good. Okay. I saw one. What are your top three priorities for Lincoln County, and what is your plan to achieve those goals? We kind of went over that a little bit, but one, you said you wanted to see this through. I guess that's probably a priority for you. What are some other ones?
Well, I want to see it through, but I also want to see a number of the other projects through that are occurring. Carbon capture and CCUS, carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Sequestration, that's a big deal. And people may have different opinions of that whole concept, but for instance, companies that capture carbon and then they utilize it for EOR, which is enhanced oil recovery. So they put it in a pipeline and they get it from Lincoln County up to Campbell County. That's a long pipeline, but they use it to be able to pump into wells and enhanced oil recovery, be able to use that carbon to be able to bring the oil up and more fully utilize that. I want to see things like that happen. I hope to gain more information about carbon capture, utilization, and storage, sequestration as we go, because I want to make sure that it's safe for the environment. But they're going a long ways down in the ground, and so when you think about water aquifers, they're going to surpass that. I look at coal to products. They are working on bringing coal products in humate soil conditioner, which is significant. So you take the carbon from there, put it into a soil conditioner, and carbon is in so many things. You want to see things grow. You do a humate soil conditioner, and that process has been developed and is coming to Lincoln County. They utilize coal for cosmetics. They utilize coal for a sweetener, like, and sorry, I don't have a name for it right now. It may not be sorbitol. Anyway, I shouldn't even say, but there is a sweetener. I've actually tasted it that comes from
coal.
Coal to ammonia. So you take the carbon from the coal and you put it into ammonia, which serves as a fuel. And so then you can pipe that to where it needs to go. And that's a significant project that's occurring and will occur, we anticipate, in Lincoln County. So we look at those projects. We won't have much soda ash being mined in Lincoln County, but just on the borders, and so that's why it impacts us and more jobs. So when I look at what some of the priorities are, first and foremost is we really have a great quality of life in Lincoln County. We really do. I mean, it's just top notch. Preserving that quality of life is a top priority for me. One of the ways in which we do that is to help make sure we have an economy that allows for good, high-paying jobs so that people can support themselves and their families, so that they're able to enjoy their lives with sufficient means. So quality of life, to me, has to do with the environment. It has to do with wildlife. It has to do with sufficient revenue and jobs to be able to provide for a family.
Agreed. Okay, these kind of go together. How are you going to support the Lincoln County Fair? How are you going to make it more successful? And why isn't the fair bringing in more headliner groups? The fair lineup is very poor this year. How could you possibly change it?
Okay. That's a fair question. Not trying to be punny, but
nope, I get it. I get it.
What you're saying.
Yep.
First and foremost, I would like to express appreciation to the Fair Board, a 9-member board with a secretary, with a staff that I think do a phenomenal job with the fairground facilities, with the fair itself. So I would debate with just about anybody. We could have a pleasant discussion about the fair because people have different perspectives. One of the primary reasons we have a fair is to give young people who are involved in raising, producing livestock, producing artwork, those types of things through the 4-H program, where they actually learn how to take care of animals, get them to the point where they can be judged about how well they did and how good that animal is, and then be able to sell it. To me, that teaches that's a great part of an education.
Yep, I did it.
People to be able to know how to do that kind of stuff, and it will serve them well for the remainder of their lives. So you think about the fair, just that one aspect is pretty significant. Then you look at the community booths, and people are able to share their talents and maybe inspire other people to develop their talents. You think about the ability to create, that's significant. When you can create a piece of art, when you can grow vegetables in your garden, maybe even a fruit tree in Star Valley, not an easy feat sometimes, but I think those things are significant. Now, when you think about the entertainment, and that's another element of the fair, and this fair board, they work really hard to try to determine the best thing for maybe not what it meet everybody's needs, but enough that enough people are pleased with their fair experience. Concerts, headliners, so to speak, are very expensive. And so there's times when you have to determine, okay, if we do this and this money is spent on this very expensive concert, then maybe we won't be able to do this, and this. And so they look at doing under the tents and the big top and et cetera, entertainment there and out on the midway, and to have a carnival. I think one year they didn't have a carnival many years ago. People were disappointed because there's a segment of the population that carnival's important to them. I'm the last one who would be critical of our Lincoln County Fair, because I think it's phenomenal. For a small county, I mean, not geographically, but population-wise, that is one heck of a fair, and they do a fine job. And I'm just kind of glossing over some portions of the fair, but there's a lot. There's something for everybody, I think, that has an interest that way. So I think when people, if they should take some money out of their CDs and go buy some swine or some sheep or some beef at the Lincoln County Fair.
Fill your freezer.
August 10th is the livestock
fill your freezer.
auction. Yeah, that's right. And then you think about what you're doing for young people, for their college fund, for future projects, for their life, if that's what they choose to do.
Let's see if we had any other ones from here. Yeah, I remember raising sheep, and I did a steer once. Didn't do that again.
Once was enough.
Once was enough.
But you gained experience.
It was hard, and my mom made me do it. She was like, "I'm not doing it for you." And I learned a lot about myself too, what I couldn't handle. But yeah, when you've got a steer that's 15 times bigger than you, and you're dragging this thing around the arena, man, I don't know. These kids are crazy. But it teaches them responsibility, and they get some from it, and they need to.
It really does.
Yep.
It gives them experience, and maybe for some they may say, "Oh man, I love this. I want to do this all the time," and some may say, "Oh, okay, I've had that experience.
That was fun, and I'm done."
But I worked as a kid. I worked on a dairy farm with a good friend of mine. He finished working at the dairy farm, went to college. He's now lead counsel for ConocoPhillips oil company, and to go run the dairy farm was not in the cards, but he figured out a work ethic that really helped him in his career as well.
Definitely.
Even if he wasn't raising cows anymore.
Yeah.
Or milking them.
You definitely learn something.
Yes.
That's for sure. It's important. Okay, so we asked this question to the other couple gentlemen. How transparency in, we'll just say the county commissioner, how can you make sure that the people in the community know what's going on, in what's coming across, and saying, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing, or these are our ideas, or whatever.
Sure. Transparency is very important to me. I believe that the public deserves to know what's going on in their government. And that, there are some branches of government that are not looked on really favorably, and I mentioned that about the federal government. There are aspects of the state government that concerns me. There are even some challenges within local government, meaning the county and towns, etc. But I have responsibility right now, and I hope to have some more responsibility for a few more years for what's going on at the county. We have county commission meetings typically on the first Tuesday and Wednesday of each month, and then on the third Tuesday of the month. Now, we have to vary that somewhat when the fair is going on. For instance, we won't meet until, I think it's the 13th and 14th. And
After the fair.
et cetera, after the fair. Then we have to avoid election day, primary election, which is Tuesday the 20th, and then we'll need to meet on the 27th. We'll advertise those dates and changes to the schedule. In fact, we put that schedule out, we put it together back in January and knew that some of these things were going to come up. So there's transparency right there. As you put a public notice out there that people know. You have the newspaper of record. They go through on a regular basis, I think it's an annual basis, and say certain aspects, and then they're chosen one way or the other whether or not they would be the newspaper of record for the county. Then the minutes from the county commission meetings are published in that newspaper.
Okay.
So the public can see exactly what's occurring at the county level in terms of the minutes from those county commission meetings, which includes planning and zoning, which includes reports from different departments and agencies within the county. Every community in Lincoln County is generally within 45 minutes or less of either a closed circuit or a video portion of the commission meeting or the live in the Kemmer Courthouse. So let me rephrase that.
Okay.
So the commission meetings are held at the Lincoln County Courthouse in Kemmer, and then we do a link into the county offices at 421 Jefferson Street.
Okay.
So 100 miles between the two, but within 45 minutes of Alpine. Within Cokeville could make it to Kemmer. A barge, Old Pal could make it to the courthouse. So 45 minutes or less. That's significant in terms of transparency, and is why we do the video aspect of that as well. So we work very hard to make sure that the public has the opportunity to see what's going on, to see what's on the agenda, to get on the agenda if they would like to address the county commissioners. And that's something that's significant for us to be able to have organization and not have chaos, so that we can follow an agenda and go through and take care of the business of the county, because somebody may have their perspective they'd like to share with us, and we welcome that, but we still have business that we have to take care of. And if you read the minutes of the commission meeting, there's a lot of business that we take care of.
Oh, I'm sure. Okay, so what, the valley's small, everybody knows everybody, but what do you bring to the table versus anybody that's running against you?
Well, I think I really try not to exploit the inexperience of the other candidates for county commission. I think that really has to do with it. I have the experience and the background. I could go through boards that I've served on, government entities that I've worked with. Being a county commissioner really has to do with serving. It has to do with listening to what people need and want, what their concerns are. Today I'm working on fire restrictions. Are we having to have fire restrictions? Don't anybody take that out of context. Not yet. And hopefully we don't. Hopefully it rains. And and doesn't ruin anybody's hay crop, but rains at the right time that we can have the moisture level. We already talked some about that. But
that's something that we go through every year too. It starts to get dry, and then we start to have a few storms that, we get some lightning out there, and we're worried about burning up or somebody not putting their fire out when they're camping. And
that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Nature, we have a hard time controlling.
Yeah.
Dumb is, sometimes a little harder to control.
Sometimes, yeah.
Something else I was dealing with today was having to do with somebody who's wanting to develop a piece of ground and what they could do on that ground. It's really a question for the planning and zoning, planning and development department, but nevertheless, the public has access to me, and once again, that number is 307-877-2001. They want to chat with me, have them give me a call, and let's chat. But
Okay.
for instance, this gentleman wanted to talk about what can I do with this parcel of ground. And it's this zoning. This is something I'm taking a look at, and I steer him in that direction. But I think I spent close to 30 minutes on the phone with him today. It's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what I do anyway.
Yeah. Let me think. I had it in my head, but then it disappeared.
While it comes back,
Okay.
let me talk to you
Go for it.
about property taxes, because that's
I was gonna say that is probably one of the big ones that I think a lot of people are worried about right now too. But yeah, property tax.
And Jenny and I worry about that as well. It is difficult to have seen our property taxes go up year after year after year. There are a couple of things that are in the works right now, and let's talk about people that are on a fixed income. And there's the state has a state-funded property tax refund program, and that application deadline ended early in June, like June 3rd, I think. The county also has a property tax refund program that the county commissioners, that the county funds, and the county treasurer's office, Jerry Greenfield, and his staff can help people through that process to be able to apply for those property tax refunds. I believe October 14th is the deadline for that particular program. And I think the refunds are somewhere in the neighborhood of $900, maybe they're, but, so you think if somebody on a fixed income, if they'll pay their property taxes, and then they'll go to the state's program and the county's program, they can get a portion of that back, and it can be significant for them to be able to get that. There are, I think it's 145% of the median household income in Lincoln County, so if you can make up to that point. There's other criteria, and there's an asset test, meaning if you own lots of gold, or you have lots of property, or whatever, you may not qualify. But there are other things that are in the works. The legislature, and I'm not, I try to be careful, because the legislature sometimes is a pain in the neck because of what they come up with, but nevertheless, they had 12 bills, I think, in the most recent legislative session, and they got a couple of things going in the right direction. Let me make sure I don't miss it. So I'm talking about some programs trying to help people, but I would encourage people to get informed about the constitutional amendment that will be on the general election ballot on November 5th.
Okay.
And that has to do with, so you have really right now 3 categories: commercial, minerals, and everything else in terms of property taxes and how they're taxed. This constitutional amendment proposes to, if people vote yes and it passes, they'll split out residential property. And that's where a lot of the concern is residential property. Then as they isolate that, because they've kind of been held back because of the Constitution, and the Constitution is a protection, and so we have to be really careful, but they're taking it to the voters to help them decide whether or not that's the right thing to do.
Okay.
So if that passes, they isolate residential property for property tax purposes, and hopefully they can lower property taxes as it pertains to those of us who are affected by that. Now, the question will be, how do you backfill the loss of tax revenue that's required for us to have a county coroner's office, or a planning and zoning department, or a sheriff's office, or road and bridge, or emergency management, or public health, or, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Those are services that people have come to expect and deserve, and is why government exists, is to be able to provide for people. Can you imagine if you lived out in the country 5 miles and you not only plowed your own road to the highway, but you also had to plow from the highway into whatever town you live nearby? That's one of the reasons government exists, is so that you can have a collection of people to be able to provide those services. One of the interesting things that I'd mentioned to folks that if you want to, and maybe they do already, but if they want to learn more about how taxation goes in Wyoming, we get about 3 times or more in services than what we pay in taxes. Am I saying that it's not painful to pay those taxes? I'm not saying that, that's not the case, but if they'll go to wyotax.org, they'll be able to see how taxes work and how that. So if we're paying, and you get about you're paying for about 34% of the services that you get, and a lot of that is tied back to minerals, tied back to coal, tied back to natural gas, tied back to oil. We're blessed as a result of that. There's also a downside to that. We live in a boom and bust cycle in Wyoming. When oil and gas and minerals are up, it's good. When they're down, it's not so good.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's significant. Now, if you'll take, and I got this, but it's not going to be useful, but I'll just tell you that one of the things the legislature did was made it so that there's exemptions, and one is that your property taxes wouldn't raise more than 4% in a year. So you should be able to get that recent property tax estimate statement that came out in the spring. Look at that, look down the bottom and see where it talks about exemptions, and see how that affected you, so that your tax wouldn't go up more than 4% in that period of time. Somebody may say, well, that's still too much, but they're working on it. I mean, they're working on it. Now, this doesn't apply anywhere close to you, but to some who are 65 years or older, and I think it's starting in 2025, I think, and don't quote me on this, but I guess since it's recorded, it is pretty much a quote.
Verify it for yourself then.
Yes.
If you're listening.
Exactly. And so this program, if you want to be involved with it, call the assessor's office in Kimmer and talk to them and let them know. 65 years and older, I think it's 25 if you pay taxes in Wyoming for 25 years or more. And I think you could get up to a 50% reduction in your property taxes. That, I think 2025, but I think it lasts for 2 years. It'll sunset about 2 years from when it starts, with the idea that it would kind of help some folks, particularly those who have paid a lot of taxes over the years in Wyoming. So we talked about those programs are trying to put Band-Aids on the problem, but that constitutional amendment is significant for people to get informed about, make up their own conclusions. And if you want to talk to me about it, give me a call. And I'll give you my perspective and some of the other decision makers' perspective on that I can speak for. There's some I won't speak for.
Okay, I think last question. So we're coming up on primaries.
Yes.
I think a lot of people don't think the primary election is important. How do we get voters to vote in the primary? How? Because that's probably just as important as the actual election.
It's very important. In a race that I'm in, there are 4 people running for county commissioner. And it is, it's not entirely decided, but because all 4 are filed as Republicans, one will move on to the general election, and there's not a Democrat that is filed, or an independent, or any other party represented.
So whoever wins that primary basically is...
Unless somebody comes up with a really good write-in, but that's tough.
Yeah.
That is tough to try to beat somebody on a ballot unless they really screw up. and then you can. But I
Yeah.
have seen races in the state legislature where I'm pretty sure it was a write-in candidate and it was a tie.
Interesting.
With the incumbent and the write-in, and it was decided in the governor's office, drawing a ping pong ball out of the hat, the
Interesting. Yeah.
governor's hat, to determine who was going to represent folks in the state legislature. So I think a lot the same of some of the legislative races as well, particularly the state representatives, and not Senate, because I think in our area for the Senate, Senator Dockstader, I think, is running unopposed.
Okay.
So he'll still have to be elected.
Sure.
So I think what you're saying is really important. Is to people, if you want a voice and if you want to gripe, vote.
Do it
Then maybe
in on your ballot.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
it gives you a more authority to gripe if there's a problem with government. If you didn't vote, you're kind of doing away with your voice in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you want to say, go down and vote.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yes, I'm a family man. We have, I'm married to the former Jenny Horsley. That is her maiden name. She's a lovely, talented person. We have 7 kids, 13 grandkids. The ones that can talk call me Pops. But we are grandparents of 13 wonderful grandchildren, and they love to come to Lincoln County. A couple of them, of the kids and grandkids, live nearby, but not all of them do, as they're scattered around the country. But Lincoln County is home to them as well. So preservation of our quality of life is significant.
Yeah.
I would reiterate that integrity in public office is crucial. We don't see it in some offices, particularly at the federal level, and that worries me to death. And if we don't have a change, I am very, very concerned.
Yep.
We could have a whole evening on that type of discussion, but the best government is the government closest to the people.
Is your
And-
local government.
Yeah, and I am close to the people as a county commissioner. Once again, 307-877-2001. If you have a concern,
Perfect.
give me a call. jerry.hansen@lincolncountywy.gov. Send me an email and let us communicate that way. But I had a really good life before I was a county commissioner. I have a really good life right now, and I've chosen to seek re-election, and I'm in this to win it. And I would appreciate people's vote on August 20th at the primary, and I would encourage people to get out and vote, and then again on November 5th in the general election.
When is the excuse me? When is the deadline to turn in a absentee ballot?
Absentee ballots were just mailed out 2 days ago, I
Okay.
believe, and I don't know that I have the deadline. I
Okay.
need to find that out for sure.
Okay.
Quick call to the clerk's office
Okay.
or to the website. County has a great website, lots of information there, and you'd be able to determine that. I'm sorry I don't have that
Nope, that's
date.
nope, that's
right
fine.
with me. But we could go on, and I don't want to bore people, but I've really appreciated this opportunity. It's always good to see you, and
Yep.
glad to hear that your family's doing well, and,
Yes.
and those
I'm
kids
glad
are
you-
growing up.
I'm glad you decided to do this. Like I said, I wanted people to hear, because they, not everybody gets a chance to get out, and especially in the summertime, everybody's busy farming, whatever work. So we thought that this would probably be an easy way to get everybody's information out, and kind of a, hey, this is why I'm doing this. So we thought this was probably the easiest way.
I think
So-
it's a great way. Let's preserve our way of life,
Yep.
even in face of challenges
Yeah.
that are coming our way. But we'll take challenges head on. It's kind of the Wyoming way.
Yep.
We just pull on our boots and we get after it.
Don't back
And
down.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
We won't back down. And so
Yep.
we will continue to push back on the federal government and some of the silly stuff that they do, and at the same time be proactive
Yeah.
in the things that we do within the county.
Yep.
So,
Definitely. All right. I appreciate it, Jerry. Thank you for your time.
you're welcome. Nice to see you, Lindsay.